And a Columbia University professor was assaulted this past Saturday while walking in Upper Manhattan. Dr. Prabjot Singh, who is Sikh and wears a turban and a beard, was attacked by multiple suspects who shouted anti-Muslim statements just before knocking him down and punching him numerous times in the face. The New York Police Department says it is investigating this as a hate crime. Since 9/11, there have been a spate of attacks in New York and around the country on Sikhs who have been mistaken as Muslims. In fact, just last year, a white supremacist named Wade Michael Page went on a shooting rampage at a Sikh temple in Oak Creek, Wisconsin, killing 6 people and wounding 4 others. It's all part of a growing trend toward Islamophobia, and you don't have to go all the way to Wisconsin to find it. Right here in Washington, D.C., numerous elected representatives have said disparaging remarks about Islam, often as a result of ignorance about the religion. To talk to me about this trend and the factors that may be contributing to this growth, I'm joined by Ibrahim Hooper, Communications Director for the Council on American-Islamic Relations. Ibrahim, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. First of all,
of course, put this incident into context for us. How often are we seeing attacks like this on Muslims, Sikhs, or any other people that are perceived as Muslims?
Well, members of the Sikh community are often targeted, unfortunately, because Sikh men wear turbans and they often wear very long beards. And bigots not being brain surgeons, they associate turbans and beards with Muslims. So we see it quite often. We've come to the assistance of Sikhs who have been attacked on a number of occasions, a number of cases in California, elderly Sikh men out for a walk, beaten and shot and killed. One of the first deaths after 9/11 was a Sikh man shot to death in the aftermath of the 9/11 terror attacks. So we've seen this, unfortunately, too often, and we saw it in this case as well. The individual was called Osama, in other words, Osama bin Laden, called a terrorist. But we see that same day, a Muslim woman at a pro-democracy rally in Times Square in New York was similarly called a terrorist and hit by an individual who was arrested, and we're working on that case as well. It's an unfortunately growing phenomenon, and we, as a Muslim community, we're a very tiny minority. We can't combat or challenge growing Islamophobia all by ourselves. We have to do it in coalition with others.
Of course. And talk to me a little bit more about the trend toward Islamophobia. I know that over 20 states have at least attempted to pass bills against adopting Sharia law. Is this a rational fear of Islam just growing in the U.S.?
We've seen this in a number of states nationwide, where right-wing anti-Muslim extremists in state legislatures take a template promoted by a right-wing anti-Muslim extremist named David Yerushalmi. He has a template for these laws. They introduce them in the state legislature, drum up fear against Islam and Muslims. Sometimes they pass, sometimes they don't. I think their real intent is to promote anti-Muslim hysteria, and this is one vehicle for doing it. It's like passing a law to outlaw unicorns. But if you can scare enough people, promote enough anti-Muslim hysteria, at least they feel they're having some impact. It's a negative impact, but that seems to be what they want.
And of course, we hear a lot of anti-Muslim rhetoric coming from politicians, so many of our congressional leaders. I remember not too long ago hearing Rep. Peter King call for hearings on the Islamization of America. And then recently we heard Senator Lindsey Graham talk about the phrase Allahu Akbar. Let's take a listen to what he said.
Allah Akbar is I associate with a war chant. It's not exclusively owned by Al-Qaeda. I've seen people kill Al-Qaeda guys and yell Allah Akbar. But it is, when somebody yells Allah Akbar in the Mideast, I duck. It is not like, hey, how you doing, Lindsey? It is not a, it's a war chant.
So he says it's like uttering a war chant. First of all, for people that don't know, can you explain what this phrase means?
Allahu Akbar means God is great. It's one of the most common phrases uttered by Muslims. Every time you pray, you're saying it. In your daily life, you're saying it. Just thank God, as Senator McCain correctly mentioned when this issue was first promoted by the right wing. right-wing pundits and extremists are constantly manufacturing these false controversies, and then it becomes a viral thing on the internet, and you know, it's utter nonsense, but people believe it and they're willing to believe it.
And so the follow-up to that is, how does rhetoric like this, you know, coming from politicians, really impact the way that Americans are formulating their attitudes towards the Muslim American community?
Well, our research consistently shows that up to 1/3 of Americans have active hostility towards Islam. Now, that's not a majority, but that's a pretty sizable minority. And we find through our research that it's almost always due to ignorance of Islam and Muslims. I got a hate call from a lady yesterday, and she was spouting these lies about Islam, about Muslims. And I said, look, I'm telling you that what you're basing your beliefs on are lies. Are you willing to change what you believe? She said, no. I said, well, if you're not willing to acknowledge that what you're basing your beliefs on are lies, what can I do? You know,
I commend you for trying to talk to all of these individual people. We don't have a lot of time left, but I want to get your thoughts on the Somali incident that happened. It seems that a lot of Somali Americans here in the United States are really trying to disassociate themselves now from terrorism. They're going to great lengths to do that. I just want to get your thoughts on, you know, basically, what do you think this really says about the fear that Muslim Americans have about, you know, the kind of backlash that's, you know, might be coming?
Well, I think we're in times of crisis, we're less concerned about the backlash and we're more concerned about our nation's security. Like after the Boston Marathon bombings, there were some backlash incidents, but the main concern is stop these kinds of things from happening, repudiate any acts of terrorism in any form by whoever does it. There's no cause that can justify these kinds of acts, and then worry about any potential backlash.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on and giving us all your insight. We'll have to have you back soon. Ibrahim Hooper, Communications Director for the Council on American-Islamic Relations. Thank you.
Thank you.